Members of the audience, there's copies of the agenda that we'll be referring to on the back tables. This meeting of the Kern County Planning Commission is called to order. Commissioner member announcements or reports. Would any roll call? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ashley. Commissioner Brooks.
Here.
Commissioner Dunbar.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Oviatt.
Here.
Mr. Murphy.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Hey, commission member announcements or reports. Would any commissioners or staff like to make an announcement or report? Okay. For those of you in attendance that are interested, Spanish translation services are available for tonight's hearing. Before we get started, I would ask that Ms. Rodriguez come forward to a microphone and make an announcement regarding how people can take advantage of that service. In addition, translation services or translation devices work best when they are in close proximity to the translator, so we would ask that if possible, the side of the chambers located to my left be reserved to the extent possible for those requesting translation.
Muy buenas noches, bienvenidos a la reunión. El día de hoy sí vamos a tener interpretación simultánea a través de la reunión. Para acceder a la interpretación, si aún no tiene un dispositivo, están justo atrás en la sala. Nuestro colega Fernando tiene los dispositivos. Vamos a estar interpretando a través de la noche. Si usted no escucha, tienen dos botones la función para subir y bajar el volumen. No priman el centro porque se apaga, pero aquí estaremos para servir. And for all our presenters, we will be interpreting simultaneously, so just a reminder to slow down. Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. You've received a copy of the minutes from the May 22nd, 2025 meeting.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Approved. Cases withdrawn or request for continuance. Mr. Murphy, will you review the items which have been withdrawn or request for continuance, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This evening, we actually do not have any cases that are withdrawn or requested for continuance at this time.
Thank you. Consent items. Mr. Murphy, will you go over the consent calendar?
I will. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So these are items scheduled before your commission, which are being recommended for approval by staff. The applicant has been informed of any special conditions and has no objection. The hearing on these items may be expedited if no member of the commission or audiences wishes to comment or ask any questions regarding the case. This evening, we have one case on consent. That is case number 2. This is CUP number 7, map 13922. Our applicant is Verizon Wireless by Sequoia Development Services, Inc. This project specifically is located at 27967 Dustin Acres Road. The request before you this evening is a conditional use permit to allow a 90-foot tall wireless communications facility stealth designed as a faux water tower with associated equipment shelter within an approximately 19.19 acre parcel that is zoned A. I would note that your commission did receive an addendum staff report on this item this evening. The purpose of that addendum staff report was to clarify condition 6A to specifically identify where the required concrete paved drive approach needs to be located. I would note that the applicant has received that addendum staff report and is in agreement with the proposed change to the condition. Therefore, we're asking that this item remain on the consent calendar. And the final action before your commission this evening is to approve conditional use permit in accordance with the recommended revised conditions of approval and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolution. That completes the reading of the consent calendar tonight.
Thank you. Is there any member of the audience that would like to speak on this item? If you do, that will be removed from the consent agenda and heard in regular order. Is there any member of the commission that wishes to remove this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for the commission on this item.
I'll move to approve case number 2.
I'll second that.
A vote on screen.
Four ayes when absent. Motion carries.
Mr. Murphy, will you go over the right of appeal, if there
I
is
will.
any?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. For projects where your commission action is final, those actions are subject to an appeal to the Board of Supervisors by any interested person, and no development proposed by any application may be authorized until after the final date of appeal. That appeal can be filed at the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department, located at 2700 M Street, Suite 100 in Bakersfield, with a filing fee of $562 on forms available at the department and on our website. That filing must be made within 14 days of and including today's hearing.
Thank you. Public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda and over which the commission has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state your name for the record before making your presentation. Okay, we'll move on to the public hearing. We are now moving on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. Clearly, there's a lot of interest in the topic. So before we get started, I want to provide an overview regarding how the meeting will proceed. First, we're going to get a staff presentation, followed by an opportunity for commission members to ask any questions of staff. After this staff presentation, our first speaker will be Ms. Suzanne Noble, who will provide comments on behalf of the oil industry as a whole. Once those comments have concluded, we will take public testimony of all persons who are in opposition or have concerns regarding the proposed project. As you can see, the front row has been reserved for people wanting to provide comments. For those interested in providing comments, we would ask that as space is available, you make your way down to the front row, and when it is your turn, we simply request that you state your name for the record. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes, and if you're having comments translated, I want to assure you that you will get your full 2 minutes to provide your comments in your preferred language. If commissioners have any follow-up questions regarding comments, commissioners should ask those questions immediately following the 2 minutes and not wait until the end of the public testimony portion of the meeting. After the commission has heard from all of the commentors in opposition or who have concerns, we will next take comments from those in support of the project. Again, speakers will be limited to 2 minutes, and if you are having comments translated, you will get your full 2 minutes to provide your comments. Again, if commissioners have any follow-up questions, those should be asked immediately following the 2 minutes before the next speaker begins. Once all comments have been received, the commission will ask staff whether they would like to respond to any of the public comments or provide necessary clarification to the commission, and then close the public testimony portion of the item. The commission will then begin our discussion and take action regarding the proposed project. With that said, I would ask Director Oviatt to start us off by providing the staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Lorelei Oviatt, Director of Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department. Chair Dunbar and Commissioners, I'm here today with Paul Johnson, who is the Assistant Director, and Keith Alvitris, who is the Project Team Lead Planner. At the council table, in addition to Mr. Hall, that you know, is Jennifer Hernandez of Holland and Knight. She's here as outside counsel to the county. Proposed project consists of revisions to Title 19 of the Kern County zoning ordinance. The emphasis is on Chapter 19.98, which is oil and gas production local permitting, and related sections of the zoning ordinance to reconsider, including updated procedures, implementation standards, development and production activities, and conditions for future oil and gas exploration in unincorporated Kern County. The project requires consideration of environmental impacts under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, with a final second supplemental recirculated environmental impact report, 2025, consideration by the Planning Commission for an advisory recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and consideration and final action by the Board of Supervisors. The proposed amendments to sections of Title 19 of the zoning ordinance and other related ordinance chapters are attached as Exhibit A. Next slide, please. This is the third consideration of the ordinance after adoption twice and court-ordered rescission for CEQA deficiencies by the Board of Supervisors. Staff notes that no deficiencies were ever found in the zoning ordinance or the ministerial process, and the legal challenge to the ordinance was dismissed by the courts. Just slow down and change it. The ordinance before your commission tonight is the same as the ordinance originally adopted by the Board of Supervisors November 9th, 2015, with minor amendments implemented to comply with the findings of the second supplemental recirculated EIR. The current ordinance, which is in effect, was originally implemented in 1986 and reestablished each time this ordinance was rescinded. It's detailed on pages 5 through 9 of your staff report. That ordinance has no required local permit, has minimal development standards, no mitigation measures for environmental impacts, and requires setbacks to comply with current law. All permitting is at the state level, and CEQA becomes the lead agency for CEQA. So that is the ordinance that's in effect right now, because the courts have stopped us from permitting, and we had to rescind this ordinance that's before you today. Next slide. So what is the consideration today? It's to consider readoption of the 2015 oil and gas ordinance with minor modifications, recommend certification of the final second supplemental recirculated EIR to address 3 court-mandated issues. 1, the appropriate use of agricultural conservation easements, address a multi-well health risk analysis for setbacks from sensitive receptors, and the impacts of water supply when drilling in relation to disadvantaged communities. Next slide. As context for your consideration of reestablishing local oil and gas permitting, this slide details the need for more oil and gas production from unincorporated Kern County. While the economic benefits of oil to our local business growth, jobs, and tax revenue is well known and backed by reports in the Exhibit C, 15093 Statement of Overriding Consideration, the needs of the state of California are not always clearly articulated. So I'd like to review some of those now. The projections of zero-emission vehicles to reduce gasoline demand is not enough currently to offset losses from refinery closures and lack of drilling permits for in-state pipelines. Oil demands in the state remain stable over the last 3 years and have not declined. And as you know, there are challenges to implementing EV vehicles, EV chargers, and those challenges have just become greater with the budget challenges of the state of California. There are no new transmission lines built in the last 15 years to meet the 76% electricity demand projected for 2045 to increase solar, wind, and the electric vehicle use. And we are not clear how they're going to increase the electricity for all the chargers that they need for these electric vehicles. In 2025, we will only have 7 fully operational refineries that produce gasoline and jet fuel for transportation. 2 major refineries, Phillips 66 in Los Angeles and Valero in Benicia, are scheduled to close in 2025 and early 2026, significantly reducing the state's gasoline production capacity. The San Joaquin Valley pipelines to the LA Basin and other refineries are unable to obtain in-state crude oil, and they need to have a certain volume in the pipelines to function. Many people don't actually know where our oil comes from. In 2022, California produced only 26% of the crude oil used in its refineries, while the remaining 74% was sourced from outside the state. And the majority of the crude oil was imported from Ecuador, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Colombia, brought in through the ports of LA and Stockton. However, there are specific refineries that are designed only to use San Joaquin Valley crude, and these functioning pipelines are critical for the entire transportation fuel supply network. Well, the state of California, CalGEM, is now, since 2020, been responsible for permitting new wells. They have declined significantly from the 800 average permits to 73 new drilling permits statewide in 2024. These permitting delays are directly linked to CalGEM's challenges as lead agency and the complexity of CEQA compliance. Next slide. Pages 2 through 4 provide the details and tables of past permitting. To recap, There's a total of 11,570 permits that Kern County issued that then go to the state of California for CalGEM to issue their permits. And we collected $157 million in mitigation funding, collected and distributed. And the list of where that money went and what it was collected for is on those pages. Pages 11 through 32 provide details of the ordinance. And to recap, there are two types of permits shown on the table. There is an oil and gas conformity review and a minor activity review. And in the ordinance, there is a table that shows when those permits apply. But simplistically, a new drilling needs an oil and gas conformity review. So think of that as the main permit, with other sorts of things needing a minor activity review, such as a rework. Like a building permit, you comply with all the requirements, and in this case, it's 89 mitigation measures and other requirements, development standards in the ordinance, and you get a permit. The review period is 7 days for the first review. If you do it perfectly, then you get a permit at the end of 7 days. If you don't, you get a compliance memo that says the few things that you need to fix. When it's resubmitted, it goes to the top of the pile, and it's a 3-day review. If you then turn it in and it's still not complete, the ordinance requires that we have a mandatory meeting with the operator, the applicant, or the engineer, so that staff can find out what is not clear in our, permitting or the memo. The intention behind this is to help make sure that this is an efficient process. There's a cap on permits every year, calendar year of 2,697 oil and gas conformity reviews. So that is actually a cap on the number of wells. It does not roll over into the next year. It is only for each year. So if you only issue 2,000 permits, the 697 permits do not get to roll over into the next year. That was how we structured this environmental impact report, so that this is clearly a project-level analysis, and all of the disturbance, the cumulative analysis of impacts is tagged to that maximum number of permits. There is a fully online permitting system from review and issuance through Acela, and this is the system that we permitted over 11,000 permits in the 5 years when we were consistently permitting. Next slide. This is in your, this is in your staff report. So this is a step-by-step on the oil and gas conformity review. And the idea behind this is that this is a fully ministerial. And what ministerial means is if you comply with the requirements, you get a permit. There's no discretion in this. There's no public hearings in this, but there's also no discretion, meaning we're not going to make individual determinations one way or the other. If you meet the qualifications and you turn in the biota report and it meets the mitigation, or you turn in the archaeological report, then you get the permit. Next slide. This is the step-by-step for the minor activity review, which is the second type of permit that we do. Slide 9. So the legal background of our 9 years of litigation is on pages 32 and 33, and you can walk your way through the various times we've adopted this, been back to court, gone back and fixed what the court told us to do. We are now at the 3 things that we need to fix on this. And as you can see, this is a formal CEQA process. But because we are relying on the previous documents that were done, we only need to look at these resource areas, which is why it's called a supplemental. It's recirculated because we're sending out the whole document again for everyone to look at, and it is still part of the environmental impact report. Details of the processing of the second supplemental recirculated on pages 34 to 57. Next slide. This is the structure of the 10 volumes. It's available online, and I note that the entire document is considered everything from the original that was processed in 2015 through, excuse me, through now. There are 74 binders here comprising the entire record, and this is all posted online. Next slide. So the first issue is agricultural resources. A small portion of new drilling will be done on lands that have existing agriculture. The 2015 EIR had mitigation that required that land that meets specific criteria mitigate for the loss of ag land by paying for mitigation of 1 acre to 1 acre lost for an agricultural conservation easement. The criteria includes designated prime farmland of statewide importance or unique farmland that's been actively farmed 5 years out of the last 10. It has a water allocation sufficient for farming. And then we went further and we limited the final design based on the location in the sub-areas, and there are 3 sub-areas that are distinguished in the ordinance. So in the western sub-area, you can only impact 2 acres to drill, in the central 3 acres, in the eastern 1.2 acres. The difference in the distance is based on the geological drilling characteristics of what it takes to drill in those particular areas. Out of the over 11,000 permits issued, 52.35 acres of land was impacted. However, the use of agricultural conservation easements for mitigation was found invalid by the court, so we removed it. As a replacement, in the 2020-2021 supplemental recirculated EIR, mitigation measure 4.2-1 was modified to require a legacy equipment removal. As a reminder, the agricultural community throughout this entire process has worked proactively to point out that equipment that's left behind, old pipes, old tanks that aren't being used, actually impact their ability to farm, and they would like their land back. So we came up with this solution in consultation with them and the industry. Legacy equipment, where the new well is being permitted, if controlled by the applicant, the new well has to remove the same amount of legacy equipment. So if they disturb 3 acres to drill their well, they have to take off 3 acres of legacy equipment from that parcel. And if they don't control anything on that parcel, they have to go to someone else's agricultural land, find legacy equipment, take it off, and restore it so that the farmer can then get their land back to be used. The full mitigation measure is in your MMRP, in your staff report. It has a long list of requirements of how we implement this legacy equipment. Siting and construction of new disposal ponds are now prohibited on such designated farmland, and mitigation measures were also included for the protection of crops from surface water runoff, stormwater control, and spill prevention. The court found that legacy equipment removal was valid, but they then decided that we should look at agricultural conservation easements again, and they directed that it be evaluated. So we've now added to the legacy equipment the requirement that they also do an agricultural conservation easement. The difference this time is that we are not taking a payment. They will go out into the agricultural easement sector, and there are people who do those, and they will bring us an executed easement. So if they disturb 2 acres, they have to bring us an executed agricultural conservation easement for 2 acres. We have made minor changes to it based on a late comment from the law firm of Shute, Mahaly, and Weinberger, representing a group of affected farmers, who pointed out that some of our language didn't match the civil code. We concurred, and we changed the definition that only entities that are listed under the civil code can hold these agricultural easements. In the addendum, which we'll talk about later, that you received, they then sent us a letter appreciating the change and acknowledging that they are satisfied with what we are bringing to your commission. Next slide. The issue on setbacks. So the multi-well health risk assessment that the court indicated we should look at actually had to do with setbacks. The setback that we had calculated was 210 feet. That has been overruled by the adoption of SB 1137, and a full analysis of what that is and how it came into being is in your staff report. It was signed by the governor in 2022, and for a variety of reasons, only became effective in June of 2024. So that means that it applies. We are therefore not required to do the multi-well health risk assessment because now we have a state-mandated setback of 3,200 feet from sensitive receptors. Sensitive receptors are, I'm going to walk through the definition of them here in the next slide in a minute. Don't turn it yet. Just want to make sure I have that. Okay. All right. So the ordinance has been changed to conform to SB 1137. However, the determination has been made that because there are complicated rules, you can't drill new wells inside the health protection zone, which we're going to walk through in a minute. You know, there are new requirements on those active wells. The determination was made that this EIR would not cover the health protection zone. So all of that permitting is now going to be done by CalGEM in the state of California. So there'll be no oil and gas conformity reviews, there will be no minor activity reviews, and there will be no permitting from Kern County in what's called a health protection zone, which is the 3,200 feet from the sensitive receptors. Next slide. So what does that mean? It is literally a circle around a sensitive receptor. And there is a CalGEM website where they have been collecting this information and creating these layers. But obviously, this is an evolving process because as you build, we're going to review in a second what a sensitive receptor is. As you build a new commercial shopping center, it creates to expand the 3,200 feet. I want to clarify that Kern County is not saying that we agree that this is the correct setback. We are not saying the EIR extensively includes an analysis of how the state of California, which put together a science advisory committee, came up with this, but there was no modeling done. So we are not saying that we agree with it. We are saying it is state law and we honor the law. Next slide. So what is a sensitive receptor? It is a residence, a school, a college, a daycare center, a prison, a community resource center, hospitals, detention centers, and any building housing a business open to the public. That is an expansion of the sensitive receptors that we had in the ordinance, but we have adopted this. There is a lawsuit that has been filed against the state of California by various entities, and if that lawsuit changes SB 1137, then the county will re-examine this policy in the ordinance, but right now it is the law. Next slide. The third item was a question about what is the impact of oil and gas drilling and the water, potable water that they use on disadvantaged communities? So we have an extensive analysis in the EIR of the disadvantaged communities and their water challenges, and we've already had a sign-off by the court on the amount of water supply that we project that the drilling cap that we've placed on this would produce. So we modified this mitigation measure, and we determined that we needed a disadvantaged communities water relief fund. So each new well will pay $9,732 per well into this fund. $140 of it will be used for staffing in order to manage this project, and the rest of it will be used to support State Water Board grant programs that provide construction funding to do what we call extensions. I know you've been aware of many of these projects in Bakersfield, the Victory Mutual Water Company situation right now. These are situations where mutual water companies and smaller systems were set up by developers for 30 houses, 40 houses, 300 houses, and they've been unable to appropriately manage them. And because they're not public entities, they're not a community services district, they have limited ability to raise fees or taxes or anything like that, and they are failing in many cases. So the State Water Board steps in, classifies them as needing consolidation. They can either voluntarily do it, or they can be ordered to do it, but there is state funding to do this. Self-Help Enterprises is one of the organizations that does an incredible job at this. But there is also a deficit of money for expansion of capacity. Water districts don't always have enough money. This is a reimbursement from the state, so they don't have enough money. They have to go get a loan, and they can't get the loan. There are a lot of complications. And Kern County has one of the highest percentages of these types of failures. This fund, next slide, would produce $11.7 million, depending on the number of permits, to over $26 million a year for this fund. We have, since subsequent to the release of the response to comments, we had dialogue with organizations that work with disadvantaged communities on water issues and who had provided comments on the draft EIR. They bring a lot of experience with these issues, and so we are recommending changes to mitigation measure 4.17-3 to provide for more opportunities for grant funding by adding the SAFER program to it, which stands for Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience Program. So we want to add that program. As well, which is designed to focus on at-risk smaller systems for the needs of those systems. We're also recommending an advisory work group to be established, supported by county staff, for design and implementation of the program, as well as continuing support and guidance. By their very nature, in disadvantaged communities, these are complicated projects. Sometimes we have to go into people's front yards in order to extend the water system. Sometimes at the end of the day, their rates may go up. There is outreach that we need, and these organizations have been working already on these kinds of water projects, so we consider this a useful collaboration, and we appreciate that they are interested in this particular mitigation measure. What is before your commission right now specifies that the advisory work group, non-county and state agency members be limited to 12 delegates from Kern County established organizations that represent disadvantaged communities on water matters. This would include organizations as the Center on Race, Poverty, Environment, the Committee for Better Arvin, Committee for Better Shafter. These are organizations that are already working extensively in this sector. They would select their total number of delegates, but there could be 2 per organization or however they want to arrange it. We want to limit the size of the work group to facilitate effective decision-making and a timely delivery of projects, with additional public input always being welcome. Changes are shown and underline and strike through in your staff report. I note that you did receive an addendum and you received additional letters. I do want to note that the organizations I just mentioned are included in a coalition of 71 environmental justice and environmental groups asking the Board of Supervisors, but in this case it applies to your commission, to deny the ordinance as the ministerial permitting was not supported by a site-specific analysis, they assert, under the California Environmental Quality Act, and deprives residents of future notice and opportunities to comment when permits are issued for operations in their communities. I note that the Court of Appeal has reviewed the ordinance once again and determined that it is a ministerially appropriate ministerial. SB 1137 will ensure that in reality there will be no permits in communities. The majority, 90% of the permits that will now be issued will be in the designated oil fields, which are many miles away from communities. So the assertion that we are depriving them of public notice, I point to the 72 binders. There has been public notice, public debate, and public conversation and input on this project for 15 years, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments. We believe that we have been respectful of those comments, and we note that as there will be, that Kern County will not be responsible for permitting within the 3,200 feet, we would have no input or authority over what happens inside with abandonments and reworks for public health and safety. They also note that it threatens increased air pollution. Remind your commission, as you've permitted other projects, that the air mitigation requires the implementation of the developer mitigation agreement that the county has signed with the San Joaquin Air District to mitigate the site-specific and cumulative creation of criteria pollutants for no net increase. With the implementation of SB 1137, implementation of this ordinance will result in the most environmentally protective oil and gas activities in California, while providing production and investor stability for Kern County communities and transportation fuels. The transition that the state of California wants has stalled, and there will be a need over the next few years, and I will not predict how many years, but at least the next 10 years, which is the projection for this EIR, for transportation fuels. And we need those to come from California as well as from these countries overseas. While our local environmental justice organizations that I mentioned, along with these statewide, continue to request the ordinance be denied based on the general philosophy that Kern County should not support any permitting of fossil fuels, I would like your commission to know that we have actually had further productive conversations with them. They are our neighbors, and we want to continue this dialogue on this water supply mitigation. And so we ask that you, and we expect those to continue up until the Board of Supervisors actually considers this ordinance. So we are requesting that your commission take action on the changes that are currently recommended by staff, since we have no other input on that. Next slide. The staff recommendation is supported by the findings provided for you as Exhibit B, CEQA 15091 Findings of Fact, Exhibit C, CEQA 15093 Statement of Overriding Considerations. Benefits of the project that outweigh each significant and unavoidable adverse environmental impact has been provided with supporting facts. And the actual ordinance is Exhibit A with changes for the 2025 considerations shown in red. This proposed ordinance was in development for 3 years before its adoption in November 2015, and permitting began in 2017. It has provided over $157 million in environmental mitigation, including $131 million for the air. In contrast, since permitting was stopped by the courts again in 2020, CalGEM, as lead agency, has issued significantly less permits for new drilling statewide than coverage with the Kern County EIR. Staff notes that none of the CEQA documents utilized for the few permits issued in Kern County by CalGEM had any air, water, noise, or other protective mitigation that are standard. Currently, mineral right holders in California have a legal right to access their minerals, and oil and gas activities are a significant contribution to the taxes and jobs that support Kern County communities. While certain impacts to the environment are not disputed by staff, the proposed ordinance and extensive air, water, biological, archaeological, and other mitigation is once again enhanced environmental protection. This is more than any other industry actually provides in environmental protection, many with far more air quality. I would note that many comments over the course of these years, and you may hear them tonight, focused on the experience of living near oil fields and health risks for both them personally and their children. The location of oil field activities near disadvantaged communities was cited as an important reason to deny the ordinance and ban fossil fuel production. Once again, Senate Bill 1137 and the Health Protection Zone will, through its lifespan, actually remove those active wells. Since the current active wells have a shortened operation, they cannot be reworked every 3 to 5 years to maintain the life of those wells. So those estimated 9,000 wells out of the 65,000 wells we have will actually, over the course of this, have to be abandoned. This is the community's request, and they were successful in getting the Senate to pass this. This addresses their health issue. And the new wells that we would be drilling would have all the enhanced air mitigation and other things needed to make sure there was no net increase. I note that we have comments that we should focus on diversifying our economy. As the center of energy, Kern County Kern County is the reason that the state has made their climate goals. We're a major contributor to the state achieving progress, as evidenced by our 21,000 megawatts of renewable energy. We now produce 70% of the renewable energy in California, and your commission has approved many of those projects, as well as over 15,000 megawatt hours of battery storage built or in process. This powers all the Southern California communities through Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, SCAPA, which is Southern California Public Power Authority, which provides power to 15 different cities, everybody from Pasadena to Glendale to Riverside, as well as Northern California utilities through the Silicon Valley Clean Energy and East Bay Municipal Utility District, as well as many others. Kern County's green electrons power cities, homes, and businesses in all parts of California. Yet California is still one of the largest consumers of transportation fuels in the U.S., and use is not declining. So Texas and California are the two largest users. California uses 11% of the transportation fuels, and Texas now surpassed us and uses 12%. And that is not declining. The referral from the Board of Supervisors was to provide protections for communities from environmental impacts while providing a streamlined pathway for oil and gas permitting in Kern County and with state agencies. The whole of the record shows the impacts from 100 years of oil development in Kern County. And while there are examples of industrial access, site-specific misuse of ponds, and occasional avoidance of regulations, the record does not reveal widespread environmental degradation of water or land. That is what the 72 binders of the CIR revealed. We did our research, we brought forth every study, and we did an objective review to provide for the public and for your commission and the evidence of the facts of oil production. The readopted ordinance implements the balancing of government regulation with private property rights and the needs of the market of our industries, as well as the energy portfolio of California for a future of stability for investor confidence in our economy and the provision of gasoline for the drivers of California. The recommendation is to advise the Planning Commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors certify the second supplemental recirculated environmental impact report 2025, adopt Section 15091 findings of fact and Section 15093 statement of overriding considerations, adopt mitigation monitoring and reporting program, adopt resolution, recommended findings, and enact ordinance approving revisions to Title 19 of the Kern County Zoning Ordinance 2025A as recommended by staff as set forth in the attached draft resolution. This completes my presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. guys have any questions? Go ahead. We have no questions. Need to move to Ms. Nobel.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Noble. I'm the Senior Director of Production Operations for the Western State Petroleum Association, also known as WSPA. We do appreciate the opportunity to address the Planning Commission today. For those of you that don't know, WSPA is a nonprofit trade association representing companies that explore for, produce, refine, transport, market, petroleum and natural gas in California, as well as 4 other Western states. As noted, WSPA, along with the California Independent Petroleum Association, are the applicants for these recommended revisions to the Kern County zoning ordinance and the accompanying second supplemental recirculated EIR under the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA. These proposed amendments to the ordinance comprise of yet another comprehensive update to our oil and gas development and activities here in Kern County, while at the same time continuing to safeguard Kern County's numerous environmental resources. WSPA does truly appreciate the tremendous efforts in preparing the final supplemental environmental impact report that ensures that our oil and gas activities here in Kern County will continue and will be carried out in a manner that is protective of the environment. This second supplemental incorporates, as has been discussed by the planning director, agricultural conservation easements, an assessment of drilling wells near sensitive receptors, and addressing water supply impacts. But most importantly, I want to state it also continues compliance with close to 100 required mitigation and reporting measures, again, ensuring quality projects and protections. WSPA's members are committed to addressing that their operations comply with all state, local, and federal laws. And of course, this includes compliance with all requirements of the Kern County Oil and Gas Ordinance that we're here discussing today. It also includes compliance with California's Senate Bill 1137, which you've heard about this evening, and the health protection zones established by SB 1137, and to the extent of those setbacks applied to particular operations and as they remain legally in effect. Our energy industry leads in innovation and environmental stewardship, and quite frankly, so does Kern County. WSPA strives to operate in harmony with our neighbors and our communities and in compliance with all applicable regulations. California's based oil and gas production, especially here in Kern County, provides the essential supply of energy that keeps our economy and our citizens moving forward. The industry's future, as well as the county's economic and environmental future, depends on all of us moving this process forward. We respectfully request the Planning Commission recommends adoption of this revised ordinance and the supplemental environmental impact report to your Board of Supervisors. We would like to thank the Planning Commission and the county staff for their interest in and commitment to this effort. And I want to thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions? Okay, at this time, invite those opposed to this request to come forward and be heard, or if you have any concerns, please state your name for the record. Again, you'll be limited to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Michael Turnipseed. I represent the Kern County Taxpayers Association. I'm going to speak a little bit about the public benefit of oil and gas production in Kern County. Hopefully tonight will be the first step in an end of a
Mr.
disastrous
Turnipseed,
decade.
Right now, we're taking comments from those opposed.
Oh,
or have
I'm sorry, I
concerns.
didn't get the opposed part.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Kayla Karimi. I'm a staff attorney with the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment, an environmental justice organization here in Kern County. I would like to emphasize to the board that the concept of this ordinance is dangerous. It would fast-track tens of thousands of new oil and gas wells over the decades to come with significant impacts on air quality, water supplies, and public health. Our Kern communities are already overburdened with the harms from oil and gas and do not need these air and water harms expeditiously exacerbated by this ordinance without a thorough and site-specific environmental review process. We urge the county to put in place more protective and greater mitigation measures that prioritize community health, protect the environment, and support long-term economic stability. And we also strongly urge the county to maintain the health protection zone and to not permit wells within 3,200 feet of sensitive receptors, regardless of the status of the state law SB 1137. Additionally, the proposal should better address water supply impacts and risks. We appreciate the dialogue we have had with the county regarding improving this mitigation measure, and we hope to continue that dialogue. The county should take community input seriously, ground its decisions in thorough environmental analysis, and pursue a path that supports a healthier, more sustainable future for all Kern residents. We respectfully ask the Planning Commission to not adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
You mentioned the 3,200 feet distance. Is that not addressed in this document that was discussed by Ms. Ovia?
It is addressed, but only as far as it's following SB 1137. So I'm asking that the county, even as Ms. Ovia mentioned, that there are currently lawsuits, if the law is struck down, that the ordinance maintain that distance of health protection zone and no permitting within that feet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mia Jones-Zamora. I'm a law student and a current legal intern with the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment. This ordinance poses a direct threat to the health and safety of Kern County communities. In a region already burdened with some of the worst air quality in the nation, the fast tracking of thousands of new oil and gas wells will only worsen already dire conditions. Kern County residents are disproportionately exposed to fine particulate matter, a pollutant linked to asthma, heart disease, and other life-threatening health conditions. There's no safe level of exposure to this pollutant. Today, we are calling on the county to ensure that the supplemental, subsequent recirculated environmental impact report includes a more thorough, updated analysis of the potential health and environmental impacts, as well as a full evaluation of all feasible mitigation measures. We appreciate the responsiveness of the county in discussing these changes, and we respectfully request that the county continue to listen to community voices, to base its decisions on sound environmental review, and to choose a path that prioritizes public health, equity, and sustainability. For the sake of current and future generations in Kern County, we respectfully ask the board to vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Urso, Karinurso, and I'm a nurse who's lived in Bakersfield for 25 years, and I'm here to talk about air quality, specifically health impacts of air quality, as Kern County considers the best path forward in terms of transportation and other energy needs. When we talk about air pollution, we usually discuss asthma and lung disease, and that is all we had for a long time. But recently, good peer-reviewed research without conflicts of interest, published in leading medical and scientific journals, tells a broader story. The particulate matter and ozone, which are part of air pollution, have negative health impacts on our entire bodies and for all of us, not just those of us with asthma. Fine and ultrafine particulate matter enters our bloodstream through the lungs, and it travels to every part of our body. A 2022 study by Stanford shows that throughout California, oil and gas production increases ambient air pollution. With more exposure to pollution, of course, the closer you are to the site, thus the importance of setbacks. Exposure to pollution contributes to heart disease. It contributes to lung disease, to cancer, to immune system disruption, to cognitive impairments and Alzheimer's disease, to diabetes, to obesity, which leads to other chronic illnesses and premature death. I don't see my time, so let me know when I need to stop. Exposure to increased concentrations of particulate matter, 2.5, over just a few hours or weeks can trigger cardiovascular events, heart attacks. And over long term, it can lead to increased mortality, increased hospitalizations for things such as arrhythmias, heart failure, stroke, sudden cardiac death. Do you know anyone with heart disease here in Kern County? A lot of us have it. Human studies have shown that type 1 and type 2 diabetes are impacted as well, with air pollution increasing insulin resistance. The rate of gestational diabetes, which is diabetes during pregnancy, higher body weight, higher blood sugar, rates of complications and mortality for people living with diabetes. Do you know people who live with diabetes? And then pregnancy, exposure to air pollution through the first 1,000 days of life may be particularly important for children's long-term health impact. It actually enters, the particulate matter enters our cells and affects our DNA through the epigenetics, the proteins that determine how our genes are expressed. And so this impacts many organ systems and the developing brain. We know for sure now that the particulate matter can cross the placental barrier and it can cross the blood-brain barrier. So for instance, we have studies that show that 18% of all annual preterm births have been linked to exposure to particulate matter. Children born before term have significant risks of neurological disorders and permanent physical disabilities. Children also have impacted lung function for the entirety of their life, more childhood asthma, but more lung disease throughout their life.
Your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mary Cruz Ramirez, and I was born and raised here in Bakersfield, and now I work as a community organizer with folks on the ground here throughout Kern. While we're grateful for the county's willingness to meet community members at the table and hear the concerns when it comes to this ordinance, we still do not support this project as a general concept and would prefer that none of the thousands of new oil and gas wells be permitted. Public health is always the greatest concern that my fellow community members and I have, so we hope that Kern County moves towards investment in cleaner and more sustainable development, because our county still has a long way to go when it comes to no longer being the most polluted place in the nation in both daily and annual particulate matter. And then at the end of the day, the greatest concern we have is our health, because without our health, nothing else matters. Thank you, and we urge you to say no to this ordinance.
Thank you.
Hello, I wanted to place a letter on record. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Plasencia Rodriguez, and I am the Climate Justice Organizer for United Domestic Workers. United Domestic Workers represents around 8,000 IHSS and childcare 8,000 IHSS workers throughout the county of Kern. Our IHSS union members take care of the most vulnerable populations, such as children with disabilities, as well as our elderly population. Our UDW stands with all the organizations that are against this ordinance. Our union members take care of clients that are victims to environmental racism, right? Their clients have gotten sick, have cancer, respiratory issues, cardiac issues, diabetes, and a bunch of other illnesses and diseases because of where they live, right? The majority of our union members are women of color, and they take care of our most vulnerable. They are some of the most empathetic people that I've ever met. We have a member who shared that her son worked in a refinery for 30 plus years, and he had to stop working because he had so many back spinal injuries as well as brain injuries because of the lack of regulations to refineries, right? We come here as UDW members to ask that the board oppose this ordinance simply because we believe that there should be better jobs out there, right? Clean, green, better, good-paying jobs for our members. Our members shouldn't have to work in areas that cause harm to them. They should work in work sites that cause them to better their health, right? And also, we shouldn't just, sit by and let oil drillings keep happening. I think Ms. Oviat had shared that, the setback bill passed, right? And we should just kind of stand by and, drilling isn't gonna happen next to communities, but it's still gonna affect us. This is still gonna be in the air, right? It's still gonna affect us in one way or another, and we don't deserve it. You should put people over profits and side with the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cesar Aguirre. I'm a resident of Kern County, East Bakersfield. I wanted to bring up the fact that SB 1137 keeps getting mentioned as a reason that Kern County is willing to move forward by protecting sensitive receptors. But like Ms. Lorelei mentioned, there is a challenge in the court against SB 1137, and if that is struck down, then we also heard that the only setback that Kern County is willing to do is 210 feet, which is a far cry away from the 3,200 that 10 PhDs felt confident enough to put their name behind. So that is one of the main reasons why we need to make sure that Kern County is willing to not only stand by the current law of the land, but also willing to stand by the science that says that 3,200 feet is what's needed to protect sensitive receptors. If we act against the requests of community members, like Ms. Lorelei mentioned, that is what SB 1137 is, then we are going to be putting people in danger. We also know that the farmers understand that their land needs to be remediated and it needs to be restored, because having old leaking infrastructure on that land puts not only the land in danger, but also the folks that work that land in danger. And the cost assessment study done by CalGEM also told us that the infrastructure is usually out of maintenance and causes unreported or underreported leaks and issues that cause a lot of these exposures. It was also mentioned that California has some of the strictest laws anywhere in the world. We have a lot of laws, but that also means we have a lot of loopholes, like 95669 and 95668, the section of the California Oil and Gas Rule, which allows legal leaks or exemptions of components to have open venting wellheads. Like in the parking lot of Truxton Park, there is a well that enjoys that exemption and openly leaks toxic chemicals into the parking lot of Truxton Park, and 95668, which is exemptions for tanks as well. If you look at the Carbon Mapper data portal, which uses satellite information to capture releases from carbon and also methane, Southern California and Kern County have more leaks than every other country in the world except for one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Emma de la Rosa. I'm a policy manager with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. We work alongside communities across inland California, including Fuller Acres and Lamont here in Kern County. We're here to ask you that you reject Title 19 of the zoning ordinance. Oil and gas operations have historically impacted low-income communities and communities of color by contributing to higher rates of asthma, high-risk pregnancies, and cancer. In fact, if you go into Fuller Acres and you talk to residents who have oil wells nearby and are right across the street from the Kern oil refinery, you'll notice that there's a very clear pattern of stomach cancer and other types of cancer in the area. Residents in Kern County already endure the worst air quality in the nation, which is the same air that you and your family is also breathing. And expanding these operations will only worsen the public health crisis and further burden already impacted communities. Fast-tracking permitting and bypassing critical environmental review of these operations, which have already shown to have detrimental impacts on the health and quality of life of the communities that surround them, is essentially sacrificing the well-being of current residents, the people that you represent, and future generations of communities you are representing. This action would also further disregard the voices of residents already burdened by these operations and limit the information available to them about the impacts of these actions. Additionally, permitting thousands of new wells will further deplete groundwater and degrade groundwater quality, pollute resources, destroy habitats, and harm valuable farmland. While measures like groundwater metering and water use reporting may seem like progress, they fail to address the root issue. Expanding oil and gas operations is contradictory to sustainable water management and the needs of disadvantaged communities. Lastly, doubling down on fossil fuel reliance is a step in the wrong direction as the state is working towards a clean energy future. We urge you to reject this ordinance and prioritize the health, safety, and future of Kern County residents and your own family as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Anabel Márquez, gracias por prestarnos la atención. Yo estoy aquí porque estoy en contra de esta ordenanza, porque hemos visto que empiezan con un pozo de petróleo y en ese mismo espacio hacen 4 o 3. En mi comunidad estamos repletos de petróleo, repletos. Son más de 300 o 400 que ahorita ya aumentaron hasta 4 veces más. Esos están entre los pistachos, entre los naranjos, entre las almendras. No están separados de los vegetales, están dentro de los vegetales, están dentro de escuelas. Es mucho, ellos se preocupan por su economía, por su dinero, nosotros nos preocupamos por nuestra salud y por nuestros familiares. Ya basta de tanto pozo. Se quieren seguir haciendo ricos y al final todos vamos a estar muertos. Porque esa contaminación no nomás nos afecta a los que vivimos ahí, afecta a todo mundo, porque el aire se lleva las mini partículas para todos lados. Por favor, tomen conciencia, estén conscientes de que no es nomás dineros, necesitamos salud, necesitamos generaciones limpias de salud, que sean fuertes que nos defiendan en donde quiera, que esos jóvenes vayan a donde quiera y nos representen como una buena comunidad, como una nación potente, no enfermos, no con asmas, no con enfermedades del corazón, no con Alzheimer, no con tantas incapacidades, porque nosotros no somos una nación de enfermos, nosotros enfermamos a las comunidades por las industrias. Por favor, estoy en contra. Y así tenga 20 años viviendo aquí o en que Dios me conceda, voy a seguir luchando por esto, porque no se siga contaminando. Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Anabel Marquez, and I'm here because I am against this ordinance. Because we have seen that they begin with one well, and in that same area where they perforated, then they have 3 or 4. In my community, we are in abundance with wells. It's like 300, 400. I think it's even 4 times that amount now. They're within the pistachios, the orange fields, the almonds. They are not separated from the vegetables. They are amongst the vegetables within the school boundaries. And this is a tremendous situation. They are just being concerned about their economy, their well-being, but we're worried about our families. Enough with so many wells. They just want to become wealthy, and at the end of the day, we're all going to be dead. because these contaminants do not only affect those of us that live there, it affects everybody because the air takes those small particles everywhere. Please take conscience. Please be conscious that it's not just money. We also need health. We need generations that have good, clean health, that are strong, that can support us everywhere, that those youth go everywhere representing us as a good community, as a powerful nation, not sick, not with asthma, not with coronary issues, not with Alzheimer's, not with so many disabilities, because we are not a nation of people who are sick. We make community sick due to the industry. Please, I am against, and whether it be 20 years that I'm living here longer, I am going to continue fighting for this so that we don't continue contaminating. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Felipa Trujillo. Yo estoy aquí porque no apoyo eso de la ordenanza. Ya vivo aquí cerca, como a 20 minutos, en el pueblo de Shafter. Es un pueblo muy chico y ya tenemos muchos pozos. Hay mucha contaminación ahí que ya no sabemos qué hacer con eso. Yo vivía para el norte de California, pero me vine aquí a este pueblito, según yo, a relajarnos, a retirarnos, pero no se puede, porque ya es mucha la contaminación. Aparte de todos los pozos que hay allí, hay muchos que no los usan, y eso contamina más. No ponen atención para limpiar sus pozos que ya no usan. Es una cosa tremenda que no se puede seguir así. Allí en ese pueblo hay mucha gente enferma. Mi familia nada más llegamos allí, mi esposo se enfermó, se murió y tengo mis nietos que todos se han enfermado. Así que, por favor, queremos que nos ayuden en eso, que nos apoyen, porque no queremos ya más contaminación de la que ya tenemos. Gracias.
Good afternoon. My name is Felipa Trujillo, and I am here because I do not support the ordinance. I have been living here, I live here about 20 minutes in the community of Shafter. It's a small community, and we have many wells there. There's a lot of contamination there that we no longer know what to do about the issue. I used to live up in Northern California, but I came to this small town, according to me, to relax, to retire. But it has not been possible because the contamination is very high. Besides all of the wells that are there, there are also many wells that are not being utilized, that are abandoned, and that creates even further contamination. They don't clean the wells that are not being utilized. This is a situation that cannot continue this way. In this small town, there's a lot of people who are sick. My family, when we arrived there, my husband got sick. He has since passed away. And I have my grandchildren who all have gotten sick. Please, we want you to help us on this issue. We want you to support us because we don't have any further contamination than what we already have. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Woody Little, and I'm here to draw your attention to the letter in opposition that staff graciously mentioned, signed by over 70 organizations, many of them based here in Kern County, or statewide organizations with members in Kern County, or groups who are just standing in solidarity with those groups who maintain their concerns about the ordinance and who urge you to ultimately reject the ordinance and instead take a different approach to build on the remarkable progress in building out renewable energy here in Kern County that staff also mentioned, and continue to diversify the economy of the county and build green jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with, that opposes or has any concerns? Okay, I invite those in support of the request to come forward, be heard. Please state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Janelle Capra, representing President and CEO of Greater Bakersfield Chamber. I'm here to point out the key impacts of Kern's oil and gas industry, including our local job creation. 35,000 local jobs are supported by a thriving oil and gas industry in Kern County. The average wage in oil and gas industry is $89,000. Revenue for local services, contributing to $13.5 billion annually for Kern County's economy, helping fund essential public services. Paid $792.9 million in property taxes in 2022, a significant funding source for local schools, public safety, and community infrastructure. And statewide economy impact provides 5,336 jobs in California, including our direct jobs in oil and gas industries. And overall, looking at our energy independence and security. California produces oil under the strictest environmental regulations in the nation. Local production means cleaner, more responsible energy, reducing dependence on foreign oil, strengthening energy security, protecting Californians from unreliable global supply and price disruptions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Dunbar and fellow commissioners. My name is Richard Chapman. I'm the President and CEO of the Kern Economic Development Corporation. Our organization's mission is to advance employment opportunities and promote the economic well-being of the county. We represent a coalition of business, government, and education. Obviously, the oil and gas industry is critical in terms of an economic development point of view, with up to $20 billion of economic contribution per year. There has been comments, yes, we do have the strictest or most stringent regulations in the world. So that is important for all of our residents to know, and the industries that operate on that. And as was mentioned as well, the number of jobs created, 8% of our workforce. It's not just direct jobs, it's indirect and induced. Very important to understand, money spent at restaurants, suppliers, et cetera, almost 10% of the economy. And these are STEM-based jobs, right? So these are jobs that maybe a high school degree or college or beyond that. There are various pathways for folks to earn $90,000 plus a year, which is 50% more than the average county wage, 50% more. In addition, 17 of the top 20 taxpayers in the county are energy companies. So roads, education, public services. Also noted, we are the energy capital of California, if not the West. And we're very proud. We are the renewable energy capital of the country. We have more renewable energy than any county in the country. We're helping the state meet their RPS standards. We are a top 15 oil and gas county too. And we just see this as a very balanced, very thorough approach, a regulatory framework that can continue the creation of family wage jobs. When you look at Kern County, we've been rated in the top 5 for upward mobility, largely in part for these jobs that operate under the strictest regs in the world. So thank you, and we hope that you approve the ordinance as well as the supplemental EIR.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Clint Olivier. I'm the President and CEO of the Central Valley Business Federation, BizFed for short. We're a grassroots alliance of over 75 organizations representing 30,000 employers and 400,000 employees and their families across the Central Valley, many of those right here in Kern. I'm here this evening to make one thing absolutely clear. The broader business community stands firmly behind the approval of this document. From agriculture to construction, logistics to small business, leaders across industries know how critical the oil and gas sector is to Kern County's economy and to California's energy future. This isn't just about one industry. It's about preserving local jobs, ensuring reliable public services, and keeping our communities strong. The oil and gas sector supports over 35,000 jobs and generates billions of dollars in local economic activity that directly fund our schools, infrastructure, and public safety. All of these things you are well aware of. Kern has long been a leader in energy production, and we do it under the most stringent environmental and labor standards anywhere. If we shut that down here, we don't stop using energy, we'll just have to import it from places with far fewer protections, and that doesn't help our climate or our economy. This document is a practical, science-based path forward. It's been vetted thoroughly and gives Kern the ability to move ahead with confidence, creating stability for workers, businesses, and our entire region. BizFed and the broader business community urge you to approve this document and keep Kern County leading in responsible energy production, job creation, and economic resilience. Thank you for your time and your commitment to Kern County's future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jacob Lopez. My family has lived and worked in Western Kern County for the last 100 years in Taft and Maricopa. Proud residents of Kern County. I'd like to start by thanking the Natural Resources Committee, the Resource Group, Lorelei, WISPA, and SIPA for your dedicated work for these incredible, beautiful binders up here for the last 10 years of service of our county. I appreciate it greatly and dearly. California has an energy crisis, a power crisis, and an affordable energy crisis. Prices of gasoline are the highest in the nation, slated to only go up next year and the year after to $5, $6, $7, $10 a gallon. But fortunately, there's a way back, nay, there's a way forward that Kern County will continue to lead because of the work done here in this building and by this committee. We're excited to see California to unleash its energy reserves to power the future in an environmentally sustainable way that no one else in the world does. Again, my name is Jacob Lopez. Thank you all for being here tonight. I urge you support this consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Garcia. I work for Well Analysis Corporation, and I've been working in the oil fields for almost 20 years. My talking points tonight tackles more support from a permitting standpoint, as well as my personal time in this wonderful industry. Today, I want to highlight why approving permits for California's oil gas industry is critical and how restrictive permitting is hurting our industry, communities, and even our environmental goals. Permits are the backbone of responsible energy production. When approved efficiently, they enable our industry to operate safely, create jobs, and empower California. In Kern County, oil and gas supports over 30,000 jobs, fueling local economies. Swift permitting allows companies to invest in advanced technologies like carbon capture and methane detection that reduce emissions while keeping energy affordable. Our industry is committed to environmental stewardship with innovations like leak detection systems and water recycling and drilling, cutting environmental impact significantly. For example, California's strict regulations have pushed companies to adopt cleaner practices, reducing methane emissions by 20% in recent years. We need balanced reform, streamlined permits to support innovation, protect jobs, and maintain California's environmental leadership. Let's keep our industry strong, our communities thriving, and environment cleaner. I hear a lot about asthma and lung disease and other health issues, and for the most part, it's never coming from people that actually work in this industry. I've been standing over oil wells for over 20 years, and I've never had any health issues. I understand I am not the standard, and there's exceptions to every situation, but this isn't just me. It's thousands of other men and women of all cultural backgrounds and skin colors that are currently working in this wonderful industry, and tens of thousands that came before us. And in the oil industry, there's a high percentage of Hispanics and other minorities. The opposition seems to assume they're the only ones that care about their families. To say this is to say that those of us who wake up at 4 a.m. to help do what it takes to help power our communities and state don't care about our families. And this is absolutely untrue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jorge Torres, and I'm a husband, a father, and I'm a Kern County resident. Environmental protection groups are so concerned about the local environment, but they turn a blind eye to the country in which the oil they use is produced. No other country has agencies like Calgem to oversee safe oil production like we do here in California. I encourage you all, if you really want to make an impact on protecting the environment, please approve the Kern County zoning ordinance. This will allow the safe and environmentally friendly oil production because companies like the one I am employed by are in charge of enforcing Calgem's regulations and requirements. If the people before me are correct about how bad oil it is, I should be dead by now. I work daily on the oil fields for the past 20 years, inspecting oil wells to make sure they are safely producing, and I know their claims are not true and with no scientific evidence to their claims. Oil production in Kern County does impact the low-income communities. It does by providing safe and good-paying jobs to help those communities thrive. As someone born and raised in an underprivileged community, I know this is to be 100% true. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll try it again. I'm Michael Turnipseed, representing the Kern County Taxpayers Association, and I really want to talk about the things that are not talked about by anybody else. Hopefully tonight is the first step toward the end of the last disastrous decade for Kern County, 2015 to 2025. Kern County produces 70% of California's oil, but the disastrous reduction in oil and gas production has produced many, many significant negative effects. Specifically, the outcomes of state actions in 2014 have had a severe negative effect on the Kern County government's ability to provide quality of life in Kern County. According to the assessor, Kern County assessor, in 2014, oil production was 13 million barrels. In 2024, it was 8. Natural gas production, which was down 38%. Natural gas production went from 12 billion CMS to 6.7, a 45% reduction. So what does all this mean? In 2014, the county received, for its general fund, $69 million from the oil industry. In 2024, that was 28. Pretty significant drop. The total reduction over that decade was $362 million, according to the Kern County Assessor's records. That has had tremendous negative effect on the way county can treat its employees and citizens. They've had many issues with labor negotiations because they couldn't afford raises, and they've had layoffs and all the other things went with that. Plus, Kern County hasn't received the quality of services it deserves. Please support tonight's required action. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Stevens. I'm here on behalf of Common Sense Consulting and the Associated Builders and Contractors of Central California. We stand in support of the second supplemental EAR, and we urge your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else in support? Okay, would staff like to make any more comments or clarifications?
I would. Chair Dunbar, members of the commission, I'd like to address some of the issues that were raised in people who were opposed. They were all well articulated. However, I would like to note that Chapter 7, Response to Comments, Volume 1A, addressed all of these comments in one form or another. And I'd like to note that Chapter 4.3, Air Quality, has all of the studies that were mentioned tonight, as well as many, many other studies in regards to health impacts. These are studies that extrapolate. These are studies that have been done over time, but I would note that oil and gas is not the only contribution to air impacts in Kern County and in the Central Valley. And we have provided the mitigation that we believe is, to the extent feasible, reasonable, all the mitigation that we possibly could place on this. We are, however, clear that there is still an adverse impact from ROG, reactive organic gases. Therefore, we have asked for a statement of overriding considerations that the benefits of this project outweigh the remaining impacts. I'd like to note that the letter that one of the letters you received said that this would result in 50,000 new wells. Because of the cap and we are at the next 10 years of this project, cumulatively, it would be 26,970. So it's not a possibility of 50,000 new wells. There was a question about the excessive amount of water. I note that Kern County uses over 2 million acre-feet of water a year. The analysis in the EIR, which was approved by the court, shows that if we drilled all of those wells every year, we would use 11,761 acre-feet. And while we are saying that we are willing to place this mitigation in for water supply, I just want to note the context within which those 11,761 acre-feet of potable water is placed inside the 2.8 million acres of water used by agriculture and other industries. And we do not consider that an excessive drain on the water supply. We do acknowledge, however, that every drop is important. Lastly, just for the record, this ordinance does not apply inside the city of Shafter, and none of the wells in the city of Shafter were permitted by Kern County. They were all permitted by the state of California. And lastly, I would just note that there is no ban on fossil fuels in California. Therefore, without this ordinance, CalGEM will continue to permit new wells with no environmental protection, no air, no noise, no impact on biology, archaeology, or any of the other things that we all care about. This ordinance will provide for for those protections for communities, and I'm available for any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. This hearing is now closed to public testimony and open to the commission for questions and comments.
I have a few questions and then a few comments. Ms. Oviatt, in Exhibit A, let me find it really quick. On page 14 and 15, it is the oil and gas conformity review and conditional use permit application contents. Is this kind of the outline of what your department will be looking for when it comes to applicants and what the application should contain?
Commissioner Skidmore, through the chair, yes. These are all the things that we require on the site plan review.
Great, thank you. And then in Exhibit D, the MMRP, I just wanted to ask a little bit about the legacy equipment removal. Two questions. What if the agricultural landowner does not want the legacy equipment removed?
If that landowner does not want it removed, then the operator will have to go to another place and find legacy equipment. There's no waiver from the removal of the legacy equipment.
Okay. And is there a statute of limitations or something like it for a landowner to request the removal of that equipment?
Can you clarify your question or expand on it?
If a landowner, maybe doesn't allow access to the property for the oil company to remove the equipment within the timeline, and then 3 years later demands that it's removed, could there be a case like that, or what would be then the statute of limitations to mandate that oil company to remove it?
So that is part of the lease agreement that they would have and would be outside the confines of this. However, if that operator needed legacy equipment removal, that would be an opportunity for them to go back and use it for another project.
Okay. And then just some statements on my end. I did notice that valley fever was addressed in the, let me see if I find the page for you all. Valley fever is addressed in Exhibit B 15091, MM 4.3-6. And I just wanted to identify that I was grateful and appreciative to see the awareness on how valley fever can be spread. It's identified throughout this mitigation measure, and appreciate that there is some financial support for Kern County Public Health and valley fever education. And other than that, I have no further questions or comments.
Go ahead, Commissioner Oliver.
I just have a real quick statement. Listening to all the different concerns that are out there, as well as some of the supports, I take kind of both sides of it. As the former top issues manager for North America for GE Wind, I understand the critical role of renewable energy. It also, that plays in our future. However, I recognize that a stable transaction requires balance. Permitting oil drilling in California, especially in key regions like Kern County, is vital for substantial jobs, public service, and local economies. The oil industry provides thousands of high-paying jobs, careers, and generates essential tax revenue that supports schools, infrastructure, and public safety. California leads the world in environmental standards when we permit oil production here. It's done cleaner, more responsibly than in other countries we'd otherwise import from, often with little to no environmental oversight. A strong energy policy doesn't mean choosing between green energy and oil. It means responsibly integrating both. Delaying or denying permits undercuts our local economy without advancing our environmental goals and things like that. And with that, Mr. Chair, with your permission, if we're open to that right now, I'd like to make a motion to approve this going forward, unless you have other.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Oliver.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, second from Commissioner Brooks. Please vote on screen.
Four ayes, one absent. Motion carries.
Okay, tonight's action by the commission is a recommendation. Therefore, there is not a right of appeal. However, it is my understanding that the item will be considered by the Board of Supervisors at a special noticed hearing. If I could turn to staff to provide the audience with details regarding when this item will be considered by the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. There will be a special meeting. This is on a Thursday, not the normal Tuesday. This will be on a Thursday, June 26th, starts at 10 o'clock in these chambers.
Before we move to adjournment, I want to thank everybody for your attendance and participation in this important public process. For those of you that utilize Spanish translation services, please don't forget to return your devices as you exit the board chambers. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.